We had somebody in the learning community who was struggling with choosing what direction did they take the business in. They said they had a bunch of different options to choose from. What audience, what market, where should they go with their business? And they were really struggling with it. They were feeling really confused. Hi, this is Mark Silver with Heart of Business. And this kind of confusion around choosing a niche or choosing an audience is something that comes up quite frequently. And I wanted to give you some ways of organizing the question, because I think that the way that we ask questions, the way that we organize questions, really impacts the kind of answers that we can get from it. So the first thing that I offered, that I inquired about, because this is something I've seen many, many times in this situation, is, are there really that many options? Somebody will come to me and say, there's 1 million options, there's 1,000 options, there's 100 options, or they'll be more specific. There's 6 options, there's 8 options, there's 10 options. And I'm like, okay, great. Are there really? Let's list them out. When you list out your options, what we tend to see is that there actually aren't as many different options as we think. And when there are quite a few options, maybe a double handful, 5, 6, 7, whatever, they can often be grouped. There are often 2 or 3 that are quite similar to each other, and another 2 or 3 that feel very related or adjacent. And most times, this is not universal, of course, because there's always exceptions, but most times, in looking at the large number of options, they can be kind of filtered down and grouped into maybe maybe 2 or 3 different main options. Maybe somebody's going, I don't know if I should, and it's like, 3 of the options have to do with people struggling with some kind of chronic issue, and you've listed 3 different chronic issues, but they can all be grouped under chronic health issues, for instance. And so that's the first thing, is to reduce the number of choices that are actually there. Or in another way of saying this, find out the true number of choices. So that's the first thing. The second is to identify what is the question you're actually trying to answer. Most people phrase it in a, kind of a generic way, like, which way should I go, or what should I do, or what? But what is the question that's really being asked? And what I find is that often the question that's being asked is, which one should I choose that is like the least likely to cause me problems or is a mistake? Like, how do I avoid making a mistake is the question. That is a terrible way to set about this kind of choice making. Now, of course, we don't want to purposefully make mistakes, and we don't want to set ourselves up for failure. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have some caution, but you don't want that to be the primary filter. I'm going to choose the answer that's the least likely of being a mistake. That feels terrible, What I encourage people to do instead is to think about, what are a few different filters? Like, is there an option, which is the option that brings you the most joy? Which is the option that seems the most accessible? Which is the option that feels the most profitable? Which is the option that, that allows you to lean into your gifts the strongest? Which is the option that allows you to do the most learning and growth? All of these are really valid ways of parsing the question. You can actually use multiple of those. I would maybe pick 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or as many as you like and go through all the options and rate them according to these different scales. Well, this one feels the most joyful, and this one feels like the most growth, and this one feels like it brings out my strengths the most. When you start asking from that perspective, it starts to allow yourself to know what it is that you're asking more deeply. It allows you to be able to look more closely at what the experience of the option, what the pathway of that option actually might be. If you're only looking at it from, I'm trying to avoid making a mistake, you're probably not actually looking at what the experience is going to be like of being in that option. But asking these other kinds of questions allows you to embrace the experience of what the option might be like, and that brings a lot more information, both from your heart and from your somatic body, from your intuition, right? And from your brain. And then finally, the third point, once you've gone through these, reducing the number of options and switching from avoiding mistakes to asking questions that get you to know the path, is allowing yourself to just make a choice. Knowing that it's not a marriage, it's not irreversible. You can change it if you need to. But there is, it's kind of like getting into a pool. You can get into a pool slowly, you can jump into it quickly, but either way, there's no way to avoid that experience of transitioning from being dry to being wet. You're not going to be able to avoid the change in temperature that your body's going to feel and what that feels like. These points that I've brought up previously helps make it easier and helps make you embrace the process more, so it doesn't feel so scary, like, if I make a mistake, I'm doomed. Like, it's a terrible way to make a decision. And it's why you would avoid making a decision. But you're going to have to jump at some time. And so reducing the fear, embracing the path, reducing the choices, and then jumping. Knowing that you can always get back out again. This is what I recommend when approaching these kinds of choices in business. I'm so curious, how did this land? Do you have any choices like this facing you? What came up for you around it? And I just wish for you the very best for you and your business.